going to turn the floor over to Todd and Angela Adkins. If you haven't already met Todd and Angela, they have been practitioners and instructors for more than 20 years. They practice a number of modalities, but they are between them, instructors and senior instructors of fundamentals, Mindscape. They're advanced body talk practitioners. They have bodywork licenses behind them besides, and they're just incredibly knowledgeable and generous with their time and energy. They do create lots and lots of opportunities to practice and study and tune in, do Mindscape work, do body talk work. So they are a resource really for our community at large, and they're just lovely humans, which you will get to hear for yourself. And today they are sharing with us some thoughts and ideas about offering remote sessions, which now in this age of the internet makes a lot of practices a lot more viable, but does have some question marks like, how do you do that? So with that, I turn it over to you, Todd and Angela, and I will just say, just in case anyone's tuning in, why are they just a spiral? It is because technology is what it is. Oh, Ellen, if you would mute kindly. And yeah, so they have a better sound signal if we look at their spiral. So we're going to look at their spiral and take it away, Todd and Angela.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, for today, we are the Nautilus shell, which represents a sacred geometry expression of eternity and patterns in nature that are everlasting and in all of our cells.
That's a nice spin.
You like that?
It's a nice spin on. We got connection problems.
So. Tell you what, it's all about mindset. It's all about mindset.
Exactly.
So I'm really excited to discuss today the power and the beauty and the simplicity of what a remote session can be. For all of us, we began our remote session journey early on.
From the beginning, almost.
From the beginning, within, 20 plus years ago, it was 22 years ago or so. And that was pretty strange. That was when the internet was new. Yeah. And a remote session seemed like a major superpower, only reserved for the most
fully advanced,
seasoned, experienced practitioners, teachers. And we looked at them with such awe. Like, how can you do that? And we have the secret to that. And we're going to share that with you today toward the end. All right.
Sure.
Let's not give it away at the beginning.
Okay.
Let's create some anticipation. And I will say that we have nothing prepared. That we are speaking authentically, naturally from the heart, right? Based on just what surfaces for us spontaneously with you as a group. So let's talk about logistics first, shall we?
Sure.
Like the nuts and bolts of what we need to have in terms of for a remote session to go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because technology is the way it is, we found it extremely helpful to have a few different options for your remote session connection with someone. Have your phone charged. Just in case you need to, resort to phone. This is a great example of why that's important. For some reason, your Zoom connection, right, isn't connected. I actually enjoy facilitating my remote sessions with the camera off because then there is no visual distraction. After the first 5 minutes of meeting someone, I get a feel for their energy. They get to meet me. We both are able to relax. And I often ask my clients to turn their camera off so that they don't have to stare. And I feel free to have my eyes closed the entire time so that I can go inward and use all of my intuitive tools freely without having to maintain eye contact and stare at the colors, which are actually unnatural, right? And I feel like the information comes more freely. And I'm not burdened by the assumptions that occur when we're in person. That is one of the most powerful things about the remote session, is that if I can't see the person, I make no assumptions unconsciously about who they are, what they're wearing, where they are in the world, their facial expressions. It's pretty powerful. What do you think about that, Todd?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I prefer to do the session over the phone
Mhm.
or the camera off on Zoom, but I have clients that they love Zoom. I have
Yeah.
some clients that are disappointed if it's not going to be on Zoom. They'd almost rather reschedule than have a session over the phone. So I'll leave the camera on and we have a session. It is a little bit different, but they still have great results.
Yeah.
And you just, it requires some flexibility because you're looking possibly, I've got clients that have kids that work from home. You have like, the daughter runs in, the cat, the cat photo bombs the Zoom camera, or so it's, that's just part of life. But
Yes.
before I when I have a distance session with someone, especially a new person, I will email them ahead of time and say, do you prefer phone or Zoom? Doesn't matter to me, whatever you prefer. And then I'll say, please have a space as best possible that has no distractions. If you're going to do it on phone, it's better to have your phone on speaker so you don't have to hold your phone up to your ear the entire session. As long as you're lying or sitting comfortably, that's up to you. And like Angela said, I have a backup plan. If we're going to do it on Zoom, I have their cell phone number. Like if we have a poor connection on your end or my end, we will go to on the phone. I even have a third backup system where we have like a conference line that both of us can call into and do the recording on the conference line, just in case you can't record, on your phone. It's kind of a big recording as far as a file goes. So that's very rare. It's only happened once. I can ever remember. But I do distance sessions on Zoom, on cell phone, and also on WhatsApp. So that people,
Yes.
especially people who live outside the United States, sometimes they prefer WhatsApp. So I use that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do offer the option for the session to be recorded.
Yeah.
Some people like to completely zone out, right? Close their eyes and then be able to listen to it again later. I do encourage them, though, not to listen to it more than once, maximum twice, because then they're a different person. There's no reason to hold those previous realities in the field any longer than necessary. Listen to it once and then let it go. We found to be the most effective way to absorb all the changes and receive the insights, right? Yeah. So in other words, just have lots of options. And then that's probably the best thing to be prepared for. The next piece really is about, go ahead.
Sorry. This has popped on my mind, so I got to say this. Yeah. So I've actually had to reschedule people because they did they're like driving in their car through traffic. Like, go ahead and just do the session. I'll listen. I'm like, no. This is not going to be good for you or me. I need you to be focused on what you're doing driving, and it's just going to be a distraction for both of us. So that's why it's best to email and let them know up front. This is where, for your benefit, for you to get the most out of the session, this is the environment that's most supportive for your experience. Sorry, that is fluffed.
No, that's important. I was going to say that, absolutely.
Or they're out taking a walk, or they're working in the yard, or like, no, just.
Or working and have lots of distractions. In those, if that situation does pop up, I just offer to facilitate the session without them on the phone or without them on Zoom. I record it and send it to them, and they can listen to it when they have a space to fully be present. Because the body talk system and Mindscape, it transcends time, space, any time, space barriers. And with some of the more advanced work we do with the body talk system, right? We can actually set energetically a time frame around the session so that it can symbolically drop in for them at a particular time frame. Like, for instance, when they listen to it. Yeah. Those are equally, it's all equally powerful. So don't feel like time or space or technology is a limitation at all. Right? Okay. Any questions about that before can I open it to questions, Robin? Or would you rather wait till the end?
No, man, this is your show. If anyone has any questions so far, put up your, please raise your Zoom hand, which is under reactions, which is, if you don't know, in the toolbar, which may be at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on a device at the top. Any questions so far?
old fashioned raise your hand and we'll
Raise your
see you.
Yeah, well, will you? Because I can only see.
I do.
Oh,
We see everybody.
Oh, you do? Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Well, how about I put everybody? Yeah, oh, that's okay. Anyway, any questions? Okay, so far, so good. Continue, Todd
Super.
and Angela.
Okay. The next, probably most, I would say the next important piece of this is mindset, the remote session mindset. And if you're brand new to this process in terms of receiving and offering remote healing, then you might want to start practicing short distance, like do a session from across the room, right?
With the person in
With
the
the
room.
person in the room. Yeah. That is occasionally helpful for people that have a belief system block, right? Or how could this possibly work? How could I possibly be able to do this? I will say that anymore, that's not really prevalent in the courses that we teach. There has been a huge shift, I think, quantumly with mindset and practitioners over the last, especially 5 years since we do everything by Zoom now. So you can start and move closer and closer and closer to being at any distance with someone. That's how we began, the process. Yeah. But the mindset, I think, is the most important piece here, in that when I sit with someone, whether it's in person or on Zoom or on the phone, no matter where they are in the world, I completely know and I imagine that they are here with me in person, that distance and technology does not separate us. It brings us closer together. And it's just like making a phone call energetically. I'm dialing up their energy configuration to receive the connection. There is absolutely no difference in my experience over all these 22 years in a session facilitated in person or remotely. So I imagine they're right at my table, right in front of me. I have my notes here. Sometimes, in the very beginning, we used a stuffed animal, right? Remember that? We used a stuffed animal. You might remember your fundamentals instructor, if you're a body talk student, utilizing a stuffed animal for demonstrations. We would actually muscle check or muscle test on the stuffed animal. It's helpful to have a stuffed animal with a floppy leg or arm and play around with that concept. Now, of course, you're the one doing it. It's not the stuffed animal. They're just using that. You're just using the weight of the body of the stuffed animal as a prop for your yes and no biofeedback. Of course, the next level up would be using yourself and practicing playing around with self-muscle checking. And that's how we do it. We self-muscle check. And there are several different ways to do that. We share those ways in our fundamentals course. Yeah, I think most all instructors do now, different ways to muscle check, whether it's remote or in person. Yeah. And I would say that important piece there would be just to find your groove. Practice, right? Practice the self-muscle checking with everything, with anyone that you can get your hands on, so that you can feel somewhat confident in that. And then other than that, it's the same.
That's what people have asked me, how do you do a distance session? Like the same way I do an in-person session. There is no difference in my mindset. There is no difference if you're
There is no difference.
halfway across the world, literally last week, and then or you're here in person. One thing you were mentioning, especially people starting out new with our students, we also suggest this is find a body talk, like a fellow body talker, and then trade a session doing distance session with that person. Like, okay, you're not going to get on the phone and we're going to get on Zoom and I'm going to do a session for you. And then maybe a couple of days later, a week later, then it's going to be reciprocal, to use a body talk term. That person who received the session is now going to do the session for you. So it's a way to, sometimes it's helpful, just like in class, to work with people that are familiar or in the energy. If you don't want to like jump
right in.
jump right out of the plane immediately on a distance session, call up one of your friends and say, hey, you want to trade a session, but let's do this over the phone. Maybe let's do this over Zoom and see what that experience is for both of you. Because it's often nice to get feedback from people when you've done a distance session that's like, wow, I can actually do this after all. And it's just as transformational distance as it is in person,
Yeah. Trading
can be for that person.
Trading is a great way to work out the kinks with someone that's a friendly audience before you dive into working with the general public. Yeah. So we also trade family members. So let me work with your kids. I'll work with an aging
Okay,
parent, because those dynamics are very different. 15-year-old, 10-year-old, 80-year-old, in terms of how much you can explain, how much they're going to be able to understand and follow along with you, the verbiage to use, right? Oftentimes, a lot of technical words, anatomy terms are not helpful when working with young people or an older generation. That can be a hard lesson to learn in the outset, I think. Yeah. So the next piece I think that's important is that, what do we do with hand placement? So for instance, if we're tapping out cortices, do we use ourselves or do we ask the person to join along with? On Zoom, that would be easy. I say, follow along with me. And I do all of the hand placements on myself and I invite the client to do it with me. At least the tapping, the 3 brain tapping, head, heart, and gut. That's easy. Anyone can do that. Oftentimes I'll have them hold. I'll say, so, and I won't say hold the spleen, because you know how many people don't know where the spleen is? Most normal people walking the street have no idea where their organs are in their body. And if we expect them to do something too much out of the norm, that's going to be uncomfortable and it might even add excess stress. So it's your job to say, place your left hand over the left rib cage on your abdomen. And that's enough information for them. And that's the spleen point. As long as you know where the spleen is, that's all that matters. So they can hold one place with one hand and use the other hand to tap, right? Especially on the phone. The phone makes you an excellent listener and an excellent instruction giver, because nothing can be assumed on the phone. So I think that's a really great way to practice, right? So don't give too much information, and especially don't ask them to do too much, because then it becomes a little bit of a pressure situation and they're not relaxed, right? But to hold the space for the session, when I'm facilitating a tap out, I do the hand placements on myself. Unless, of course, it's something complicated. Like, I will say, honestly, it is super rare that active memory will come up. Those of you that are practitioners understand what I'm talking about, or cellular repair. Very seldom will those more complicated techniques come up at the very beginning of the formula that would facilitate you to tap those out. But if it does, it can be done. Just use simple words, right? Yeah, like take your left hand, bring the first 3 fingers up, place your pointer finger between your eyebrows. Your left thumb is going to land naturally on your cheekbones. Your other finger will land naturally on the other cheekbone. Now roll your eyes in this direction. You see? So it is valuable to have your books handy if you're starting out. It's one thing to know the technique and to be able to do it on yourself, but something completely different to be able to sufficiently explain it in a way that someone else can move along with you. And what if they get a hand placement wrong? What if they fall asleep? What if they say, I'm sorry, I think I did that wrong? What then? Absolutely nothing changes. You say, that's great. No problem. Just tap your head, heart, and gut, and let's keep going. Your flexibility in the process, I think, is the most important piece. And as long as your focus is maintained and you understand by heart, and you have your book in front of you. So if you don't have things memorized yet, I mean, in other words, if you're not a certified body talk practitioner and you're learning, just have things right in front of you, and that's plenty, right? Yeah, and it keeps it grounded and not so airy and conceptual, I think, too. Yeah. I've never had a client ever in the history of my practice say, why are you looking in a book? Ever. There are some students, in the very beginning that have a hang up about that. They feel like they have to have everything memorized. First of all, in my opinion, that's impossible. The book is huge. It's a lifetime of Dr. Viltime's work. It's unrealistic. I've read the book how many times? 10, 20, 30 times, and I still have missed pieces of it. We teach this class, and every time we teach, I'm like, wow, I read that in a different way today, right? So when things come up for me and I'm like, you know what, let me grab a resource. I go to my bookshelf. I have a huge book full of information that's been gathered through all of our experiences with clients. They're thrilled, actually. One of my clients I see twice a month for a long time. She says, I love it when you go to your resources. Sometimes I pick up my phone, I ask Dr. Google, especially with strange diagnoses or, an interesting piece of information that just drops in my mind and I want to know more about it. I say, give me a second. I want to look this up so that I could really understand what's happening. So, and it also I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have one client that will actually look things up online as we're doing the session, but I've been working with her for years, so we have a really good relationship. I've just been flow.
Yeah.
But this last week, I was doing a session on a person. I was trying to explain. There's this piece of fascia in the hand called the aponeurosis. And I was trying to explain to her it's a triangle shape and it's going from here. I'm like, forget it. I just got on my phone real quick, took a snapshot and look it up, took a snapshot and text her like, I just texted you the picture. She went, oh, that makes sense now. So that's, it didn't ruin the flow of the session.
No.
But sometimes I have like little pictures kind of on the file that
Yes.
show this is a picture of your heart, or this is a picture of this level of the back that we're at, or this is a picture of your liver. Sometimes it helps people, but I don't make that a habit. I don't do that all the time, but sometimes I will send a text of a person like, hold on, I'm about to send you something. And they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So in describing it over the phone, when you're not talking to someone, I think of yourself as you're in a control tower and someone's in a plane who's never flown a plane before, but you know where every instrument, flip, switch, button, and knob is on the control panel of the plane. And you're in the control tower and you're telling the person, this is how one should land the plane. Like if you look to the right, you're going to see 5 buttons on the top right corner, go to the green button. Okay, you know where these hand placements are because you've taken it and experienced it, or you're looking at the picture while you're explaining it, but it really does help. Keep it very, very simple. Put your hand here at the back of the head. Now once you put your hand here, we've even done reciprocals where I hold the shoulder and they hold the hip, or sometimes they hold both. But while I'm like Angela, I will hold hand placements myself. I will have them when I tap out. When they tap out, the very first time I take them through top of the head, center of the chest, over the tummy. Not that fast, but I keep it real simple. Usually on the second time around, I'll say, okay, we're going to tap the top of the head again. This is the head brain, and this is why we're doing it. Now we're tapping over the heart. This is the heart brain. This is why we're tapping over the heart brain. I say, think of yourself having 3 supercomputers. Every time we're tapping over the head, we are downloading this new awareness. It's like we're updating the software of the body mind with every tap. And now we're going to use the gut brain. The gut brain is in a way an interface. It's discernible. It's like, in some ways an interface between our environment and the inner body. We're now downloading that awareness to there. After a few times, and maybe by this next session or so, this is my personal preference. If you want to do this, you great. If you don't, that's okay. But what I'll do is like, okay, now it's time to tap. They know where to tap. Okay. So now I tell the client, I want you to start tapping your head. And when you feel like you've tapped your head long enough, I want you to move down to tap to your heart. When you feel like you've tapped that long enough, move down to the gut or the tummy and tap that. Go ahead and start. And I say, I'm tapping with you, because I like to have them be more aware of their shifts. We talk about, tap until you feel a shift. And I think that's my personal preference. I try to engage the person as much as possible during an in-person session and also a distance session, whether that's asking them questions or having to do hand placements. But you'll be amazed. We'd be amazed of how well people are really in tune with themselves when given the opportunity. And I think it makes them feel like they are engaged, even though we're not in person. We're still connected by these, the tapping.
And isn't that the point within the whole system is self-awareness?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are interpreters in a way of what's occurring for and with the client, but not necessarily doing anything.
Right.
And that I think is a really valuable thing to express and explain to your clients so that they don't leave with, I don't ever want my clients to leave the session, first of all, not knowing what happened, not having any additional information about their body, and thinking that I'm doing something to them and that I'm some kind of all-powerful oracle. Because that creates, I think, a dependency that is unhealthy. And that's not who we are as body talk practitioners. I think we're all about empowerment and education and connection. So I think I feel like that's a very valuable thing also to explore for ourselves as a group.
You'll probably find that your clients will start being, quote, trained.
Yes.
So they do their distance session, have their Q-tips ready. They're like, yeah, we're doing body chemistry. Oh yeah, body chemistry. Remember this. This is like the saliva thing in the mouth. Like, yes, saliva thing in the mouth. Let's talk them through, let's do it this way. Here are the placements. Now let's see, where this is going to go. That's the use that term I use. Let's see where we go now with body chemistry. What wants to be balanced that I do on muscle checking and,
that's a really important thing, because curiosity and creativity are the other 2 pieces of this mindset that are essential for any type of session, not just remote, but being the observer in a session is such an honor. Creativity and humbleness, actually. When that would be another very valuable thing to check in with as a practitioner. So under the concept of creativity, how many of us trust exactly what pops into our mind during a session, and are we brave enough to say it out loud? Are you brave enough to say it out loud? Yeah. So I always 100% trust what lands in my mind during a session, even if it's about me. I don't ever discount it. I'll give you an example. This last week, I was with a client remotely, and I had this, she was talking about something, sharing something about going on in her life. And I had this kind of, it felt for a second, almost like an intrusive thought. And I had this visual of my laundry room at home. I know that feels really random, but I said, I've got to share something with you. I just had this thought about my laundry room. And she said, oh my goodness, yes, that is such a stressor for me. I have piles of laundry. Oh my gosh, you're so intuitive. I said, well, okay, let's use it as a concept. I wrote down laundry room. Let's see how that comes up. And that is what we call a pop-up, right? Now, of course, we could have gotten there through environment, right? Who knows? Through definition of organization of the home. I mean, there's so many ways within our protocol that we could get there step by step through muscle checking, especially if we're beginning in this process of learning, and that's what we depend on. So trust that that's going to occur. But so, man, when pop-ups come in, I say, this is what just popped in my mind. Does that mean anything to you? And if the client says, I have no idea what you're talking about, I say, okay, no problem. I write it down and just keep on going. It's not that I was wrong or off, is that for whatever reason in that moment, the client can't confirm in that moment. Later in the session, they might say, you know what, remember what you said about your laundry room? That makes sense to me now. Or sometimes days later or hours later, they'll have an aha moment and message me and say, you know that thing you said about your laundry room we thought was random? I know exactly what you mean now. So be courageous, be brave, know that it's not about you. Of course, you got to also balance that in that the session is not about you. You don't want to talk about yourself the whole time because that's boring. Make sure that you keep that balance. But the pop-ins are powerful. And I feel like that happens more remotely for me for some reason. But what, 90% of our sessions now are remote?
Yeah.
Yeah.
90%. Even people that live in Dallas, where we're from or live, that's because of schedules or got teachers like, look,
Traffic.
School day, I can't make it over there in time, but they'll do distance sessions.
Yeah.
The trust your intuition part. There's a client that I do a standing session every Friday. I do what she calls, I want a blind session, meaning I'm not going to tell you anything. I just want you to do the session in the morning. And she goes, I don't care when you do the session. We just know probably between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Friday mornings, she'll have a session done. She just knows it's coming. Yeah. And so we've nicknamed it sometime. I nicknamed it Mushroom Friday. Like you're on mushrooms, like hallucinogenic mushrooms, because sometimes those sessions get so wild. And I'd say, like, when they come up as a priority, I'm like, in my mind, like, man, this is not going to make sense. But I say, hope this makes sense. But this is what's coming up. And it's some wild, crazy, not by the book, priority.
We call formula. It going off road.
Yeah. And she'll text like, oh my goodness, that makes perfectly good sense. Like, because as soon as I heard that, I started crying of just like this release of emotions. And it was this crazy, whatever it was, formula. But that's important, is to, even in person, to trust your yeses and nos. And especially those intuitive, like things come like this thought just came on, this word came in. I got to say this word. And I'll say this one word. Does this mean anything to you in the context we're talking about? And I'll say it. They go, oh yes, this is what this means to me. And let them talk about that. Okay, well, let's just bring that awareness into the formula as we tap it out.
Mm-hmm. The body talk system is consciousness medicine. So the question to ask yourself is, after leaving the interaction with my client, are we both in a more conscious space? Have we explored our awareness playfully? And if that answer is yes, then I know that I'm doing my job, right, as a practitioner. There is something that happened years ago that really helped me be a more creative practitioner and more engaged practitioner with my clients. Someone came to me and said, I've received lots and lots of body talk, but I haven't felt any changes through the years. I'm like, wow, well, you're pretty loyal to keep doing it if you're not experiencing any changes. So first of all, let's talk about that. I don't need to know who the practitioner was because I'm sure there was a reason for everything. And this might just be how you're feeling today. Okay. So tell me, how did the session go for you? How was it facilitated? Maybe there's something there. She said, oh, well, my practitioner, I would actually give her a little bit of a list of what was going on in my life. And she would do the session without me on the phone. And then never tell me what comes up. She would just say, like real short, brief notes, like a couple of things like cortices, environment, but not what the environment's about, cell repair, but not what the cell repair was about. And then I didn't have the permission to like call her and debrief or anything. I said, that's really interesting. Let's try a different way. And after the second session, there was massive transformation. Now, I do understand that the original practitioner set the stage for me. She probably set up so many dominoes for me, but the client was still confused and had not felt that she had been growing at the rate that she could have been growing. So that taught me that the more involvement, the more I can engage the client, the more curious I can be, the more I can bring humor in about the human experience, the better. And that has always served me very well. The way that we do remote sessions now is very different than the way we started.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
my goodness, it's so much more expanded just because of all the years of practice and the ability to give ourselves permission to not know. I think that's really key because we don't know. I sit down with my clients and I don't know anything. I don't care what they've told me. I still know nothing about them. I make no assumptions. And I sometimes like to pretend I know absolutely nothing about body talk, which is really powerful too. And enter into the void of possibility and probability.
Yeah.
And the other key is the more you do, the better you are and the more fun you're going to have. So practice, right? That's actually the key. That's the secret. Practice. That's what our original instructor said. He stood up in front of a huge class of 100 people in a ballroom in 2002, right?
Yeah,
and he said, 100 people is a lot of people.
In the fundamentals
in
class.
a fundamentals class, okay, everybody. Actually, it was
person.
101. That was a class that we coordinated.
It's a Texas state record.
And I was 9 months pregnant in August in Texas. So everybody think about that. I was hot and irritated and tired. We had 100 people to take care of. And he stood up in front of everyone and we said, oh, wise one, because we really thought he was an amazing person. I mean, talk about intuition and his rapport with people and the change we were witnessing, which is incredible. We were all just hooked, the very first session, we were all hooked. And we said, oh, wise one, what is the key? What is the secret to being a practitioner like you? We say that in jest now, but that's actually what we were doing because we were in such a state of awe of the changes. And he said, practice. He said there were three things that are going to make you an excellent practitioner. You're going to have a fabulous career and you're going to make, all kinds of wonderful things happen for yourself and other people. First key is practice. And then he changed the slide and he said, the second one is practice. And the third final one is practice. That's it. Because our innate wisdom, your innate wisdom, the client's innate wisdom is your greatest teacher. It'll take you places where you've never been before, where you never even thought about going. You cannot be creative enough. Our best advice is to let go and allow yourself to be taught and taken on this wonderful, beautiful ride, right, into the unconscious. And do it as often as you can with as many people as you can. And yeah. So we talked about logistics. We talked about some of the pitfalls and some of the ways we have, right, made mistakes. And I'm looking at the time. I want to be real mindful of time. Talked about the mindset and what we learned at the very beginning about the keys to success here are practice, 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 have some backups, right? Engage the client as much as possible. Enjoy yourself. Be humble. Pretend like you know nothing because you don't know anything. And in knowing nothing, you can experience everything. There's no difference between in-person and remote. It is the same exact thing. If you feel like there's a difference, it's you. And the more, it's not the method, it's that you haven't practiced enough. So go play some more, right? Go play some more. And then innate wisdom is going to show you some incredible transformations. And then that's going to speak for itself.